Hello, this is Ken, your podcast preacher, and I want to welcome you back to Deep Waters. This podcast is brought to you by Applied Strengths Ministry, where we believe working together in our strengths is the effect of working out the will and calling of God in our lives. The title of this message is Tossing Crowns or Cornhole. You decide. This is a multi-episode series in which this is episode 6 of 6. When I first got saved, a lot of unusual things started happening. God may have grown a little weary waiting for me to allow Him to catch me up in salvation. One of the most significant things that occurred was that I returned to school and, in part, started learning about personality traits and the influence they had on the workplace and people's personal lives. I was also learning about natural talents and how to turn them into strengths. In fact, Gallup just published their first book on strengths called Strengths Quest in 1999, the same year God had me return to school. I am sure that it was random, right? I also took spiritual gift tests because I saw in the Bible that we were given these to try to confirm the gospel and demonstrate that God is real and cares about humanity. The kingdom is, after all, expressed in power. 1 Corinthians 4:20. I cannot express how elated I was, as I was so much looking for the purpose of my thus far wasted life. I too, like you, wanted the infamous question answered. What am I going to do when I grow up? Now, when I say wasted, I'm not saying that my wife and kids were of no importance. What I'm saying is that there was a hamster chewing on his plastic tube house at midnight level of annoyance in my soul. Why do I exist? In heaven, everyone was standing in line to receive this question, in order that it be imparted into your very soul as you left the heart of God and began your journey on this earth, so that you would search for the answer. This question is in you, like it or not. And if you do not answer it down here, you will give an account for it and why you didn't seek it out in heaven, standing in front of the very God who gave it to you before the worlds were even framed. God never intended you to be a drifter and totally ineffective as a human being. This mentality doesn't exist in the kingdom of God. Joel 2. Listen, you are alive for a purpose and a reason. You have a purpose-filled life. And it is the work that comes from your purpose, you fulfilling your calling, that will be reviewed by Jesus. 1 Corinthians 3:8-15. Now he who plants and he who waters are one. For each one will receive his own reward according to his own labor. For we are God's fellow workers. You are God's field. You are God's building. According to the grace of God which was given to me, as a wise master builder, I have laid the foundation, and another builds on it. But let each one take heed how he builds on it. For no other foundation can anyone lay than that which is laid, which is Jesus Christ. Now if anyone builds on this foundation, with gold, silver, precious stones, wood, hay, or straw, each one's work will become clear, for the day will declare it, because it will be revealed by fire. And the fire will test each one's work, of what sort it is. If anyone's work which he has built on it endures, he will receive a reward. If anyone's work is burned, he will suffer loss, but he himself will be saved, yet so as through fire. It is not the work of salvation, but the work specifically assigned for you to complete. It is your ministry. Salvation came by grace, not your own doing. Ephesians 2:8-9. So in Acts 12:25 it states, And Barnabas and Saul returned from Jerusalem, when they had fulfilled their ministry. And they also took with them John, whose surname was Mark. Your life should reflect an all-encompassing ministry or ministries. It is not just one big event, but a series of little events, which in totality is your race. 1 Corinthians 9:24-27. Do you not know that those who run in a race all run, but one receives the prize? Run in such a way that you may obtain it. And everyone who competes for the prize is temperate in all things. Now they do it to obtain a perishable crown, but we for an imperishable crown. Therefore I run thus not with uncertainty. Thus I fight, not as one who beats the air, but I discipline my body and bring it into subjection, lest when I have preached to others, I myself should become disqualified. Now you see why the urgency is in me to help you discover and recognize the gift that you are to mankind. If a soldier is recruited to serve, then even those living on a broken rock know not to send him on the battlefield without training. Look, see here. The non-cognitive exam, called the Taylor Adaptive Personality Assessment System, is a 120-question personality test designed to help select the best new soldiers and increase the overall quality of the Army. January 10, 2020. That test has been given for a long time, for decades. So even the military tests their recruits so they know where to put them. You can't just go in there and say, I want to fly an airplane. You can't just say, I want to drive a tank. You have to be gifted or talented for it. Your purpose has to be able to be manifest through you at an A level. And they test you so that they can see exactly what position you're supposed to be in. It's the same thing with life. It's the same thing with church. It's the same thing. Yes, and the military has been doing this for years, right? I told you that. Why then do we as Christians, well, it is actually a human problem, reject the idea of testing to see how we were knit together in your mother's womb? Now listen to the thought of it. Psalms 139, 13, 16. For you formed my inward parts. You covered me in my mother's womb. I will praise you, for I am fearful and wonderfully made. Marvelous are your works, and that my soul knows very well. My frame was not hidden from you, when I was made in secret and skillfully wrought in the lowest parts of the earth. Your eyes saw my substance, being yet unformed. And in your book they were all written, the days fashioned for me, when as yet there were none of them. And yes, if it makes you feel any better, it's a global problem. Perhaps people do not want to know what's inside out of fear. Or maybe we're just too lazy. Proverbs 21:25. The desire of the lazy man kills him, for his hands refuse to labor. Perhaps we know that, once we get to know what we are made of and capable of doing, then we feel obligated to get off the couch and stop telling those on TV, who are doing more than we are at that very moment, that they should do better at whatever they are doing. Armchair quarterbacks exist because of pride. Of course, the person stuffing their face with Cheetos and Pepsi knows what plays to call while watching football. The coaches or teachers know nothing, right? This is due to pride and arrogance, and a lack of purpose and of knowing yourself. Proverbs 29:18. Where there is no revelation, the people cast off restraint, but happy is he who keeps the law. Proverbs 20:24. A man's steps are of the Lord. How then can a man understand his own way? Jeremiah 10:23. O Lord, I know the way of man is not in himself. It is not in man, who walks to direct his own steps. Talents are talked about in the Bible, but for the sake of time I will move on and provide a list of resources that have helped me to make disciples that remain, and that have aided me in equipping the saints for the work of ministry. It's also helped me to function at work. I know what I can do and what kind of people I need around me to help me in the weak areas. I don't build around my strengths, I build around my weaknesses. That's the most effective team. So the testing resources are as follows. StrengthsFinder 2.0, Standout 2.0. If you're in your 20s, then Strengths Quest 2nd Edition is a great place to start, especially if you are attending school. You may not need to be in school. You may not have been called to go to school. I know sometimes the parents want to live their life through you, like they wish they went to school and their life would somehow have been better. School makes a lot of promises that it doesn't keep. I know this because I've gone to a lot of different schools. 16 Personalities is another test. Kersey Bates Temperament Sorter, True Colors International, Daniel Pink Personality Assessment, Spiritual Gifts Test by Wagner and Hoots, Discover Your God-Given Strengths, Emotional Intelligence 2.0. And then you can study some books on your generational tendencies because, for example, the baby boomers, there are some things that we do alike because of the culture that we grew up in, because of the times that we grew up in. I know when I look back at my parents' life, they had cans that were 30 years old in their cupboards because they grew up in a time when they weren't sure if they were going to always have food. So they got in the habit of storing. So no horoscoping, crystal readings, crystal ball reading, tarot card reading, palm reading, calling up Samuel by the way of a seance. 1 Samuel 28:7-16. All of these can and will impart unwelcome guests, that is, demons, as all of these things are of the devil. So don't tamper with witchcraft, elsewise you won't know which craft you enter into on a daily basis. Keep in mind, as I already know, you want evidence that this stuff is already in play and has been proven to work. Sports, music, arts, armed forces, Olympics, and prestigious universities do not rely on chance. All of these industries are full of people sitting on the right bus and in the right seat. Good to Great by Jim Collins, or Delivering Happiness by Tony Hsieh. We see it. We pay way above full price to sit at some of these events to watch excellence in action. So get up and be excellence in action for an audience of one, and that is Jesus. Now in finishing, there is no point in arguing against this message, as yours or our current stance had proven that our way, or the position we think we have, in God is not really working. There is a small group that is and can change the world, as that is all that ever has. I encourage you to continue to soldiering on. For the rest of you, you must sort it out before it's too late. Salvation is not an insurance policy against the judgment of God. No, we may not be judged for our sin, but our works will be tested by fire and judged by God. Arguments and excuses may work with your pastor, but they will not work with God. You will not be standing before him saying, "It's the fault of the church, God." That's not going to work. Well, that's it for today and for this message series. Remember, it's not what you find wrong or disagree with regarding these messages, but what you can take away from it. Together we can do more to impact the kingdom than if we work alone. Let's flip the script and kill, steal, and destroy the works of the enemy and create space for the light of lights to shine into people's lives. Plant a seed and click on the like and subscribe button. Let's build this ministry together. Thanks, and see you next time in Deep Water.